Hi, I'm Dr. Starsiak at the Starsiak Osteopathic Clinic, and in this video, I want to talk about evidence-based approaches to muscle growth. The research is really clear. You really need a minimum of 10 sets per week for the muscles that you're wanting to grow, and in these sets, you need to be right at failure by the end or within 1 or 2 reps of failure. So this means that the last reps are really your most important. You want to throw all of your effort into it. You don't want to give up because it's uncomfortable, because then you're just wasting your time. You might as well not try to gain muscle mass at all if you're unable to persist when it's uncomfortable. And this is a good thing in life in general, to persist and draw on all of your resources to achieve a goal when you're meeting resistance. So that's number one, at least 10 sets per week to failure, but the more sets you can do, the better. Now, is there an upper end of this? The research shows that all the way up to 52 sets per week, and this was the highest amount they didn't go beyond that, where again, each set you're within a rep or two of failure. It doesn't so much matter if you're doing 20 reps or you're doing 5 reps. What matters is that you're going to failure in those sets. And the research went all the way up to 52, and they just saw increasing muscle volume gains. They never saw it stop. Now, this of course is going to depend upon if you're getting enough recovery time, your age, your hormonal levels. So if you're wanting to get as much gains as you can and you're like, I got the time, I'm gonna do 50 sets per week, well, you probably, for that to result in muscle growth, you need to have pretty good hormonal levels. You need to be eating enough protein and enough calories in general, and you need to be sleeping enough. So the more sets you're doing per week, the more those other parts of the tripod are important, right? Food, sleep, muscle, exercise. It doesn't matter if you're doing 20 reps or you're doing 5 reps, but I'd recommend shooting for somewhere in between. You know, the 12, 10, 8, 6, 4, like that's a really good strategy. People knock it because it's been around so long and everyone wants to like come up with something new and special so that they can distinguish themselves and cut an edge, but it's classic for a reason. The classics are classic for a reason. Another great strategy are drop sets. So if you want to get in even more muscle fatigue without doing an entirely new set, once you can't go any further with your last rep, take off some weight, immediately do another one. Take off some weight, immediately do another 1 or 2. Really easy if you're using machines where you can just move the peg. You probably need a partner if you're going to be moving the weights. And then another common strategy is supersetting. So in your rest time, say you do chest, in your rest time you could do low row because it's not going to fatigue your chest. It actually may help you recover faster, and it's going to keep more of a cardiovascular effect going during your exercise to give you other benefits too. Now, there's another myth around protein intake that has really spread throughout the whole United States. I don't know about around the world, but it's this idea that you can only absorb about 30 grams of protein at a time. And research shows that's totally false. Within the hour after exercise, you have the strongest effect of protein intake on the rate of new muscle synthesis. So it's important to get in really as much protein as you can. The research went all the way up to 100 grams of protein in that first hour. And they also, with that, did not find some sort of plateauing effect where if you went over 80 grams of protein, all of a sudden you were no longer getting more results from it. What they saw was just increasing results in muscle synthesis with increasing protein intake. And they also showed that the body was able to digest and absorb all of that protein. So you can really cut loose on protein, especially right within the first hour after exercise. Research also shows that you're going to develop more muscle mass if you have protein before and during exercise. So that's your best bet. You have an easily digestible protein. There's great vegetarian ones that are out there if you're vegetarian or vegan. Whey is also a really good one. I recommend organic, grass-fed. Make sure the cows are treated well because a lot of dairies are really abusing cows. But you have a bunch of options. The mushroom proteins are really big now. You can get these mycelial-based proteins where a couple 4-ounce pieces of them will give you 34 grams of protein. It's pretty amazing. Or tofu's fantastic. Just don't get it from China, get it from the United States or Canada. And it's fermented, so the whole phytoestrogen thing is not an issue with tofu. That's also another myth that's out there. It's actually really good for you. You get that dense tofu that it's got 74 grams of protein in it. So really you have, one of those in a day, and for a lot of people, you're about halfway to your protein needs. And the general rule of thumb in the bodybuilding community is to shoot for a gram of protein for every pound of weight. And that can be really difficult, but it's doable. And you can remember that, well, every gram of protein is worth 4 calories. So if you only bring in 100 grams of protein, you've brought in 400 calories from protein. And if we go back to your macro distribution and we said, all right, we want protein to be at least 33% of your caloric intake, if not 40%. So if you brought in 100 grams of protein, dang, that's only 400 calories. So if that was a third of your total calories, wow, you're only bringing in 1,200 calories. That's not enough. So really, for most people, you want it up around 200 grams. If you're trying to put on muscle mass, that would put your total caloric intake around 2,400. And that would put your just protein intake around 800 grams a day. So this is one of the biggest things, is getting a strategy down to make sure you can get in enough protein. You got to make sure it's a complete protein. Complete proteins for vegetarians, I'm one, are like Quorn, Quorn. That's a mycelial-based protein, and it comes in different forms. And it's actually been shown to be just as effective at growing muscle as meat. Meaty is another great mycelial-based vegetarian protein. You can get that through Whole Foods. You might be able to buy it directly online. Hemp seeds are a complete protein as well. So tofu's complete protein. Otherwise, if you're doing like grains and beans, you need to mix those together. Obviously, meat's a complete protein. Everybody already knows that. But I discourage the eating of meat. Being a doctor, there's negative health outcomes from excessive meat eating. Try to limit your meat consumption to no more than 10% of your caloric intake daily. And that's actually associated with greater longevity, lower risk of different disease processes. I know there's some debate out there, and there are a lot of variables. There's some people who just eat sirloin for every meal, and I don't think we've had a lot of research on that. So I'm not saying that there's no way that can work. I don't mean to upset anybody around that. But the general consensus is that fruits and vegetables are really important. Whole grains, beans, in the places around the world where people regularly live to be over 100, they're not eating an all-meat diet. They're eating about 10% of their calories from meat or other animal products, and the rest are all plants. And they're whole foods. They're eaten in season, and they're eaten close to the source. They're not preserved. And you also have to be prepared that as you start eating more, you're going to have more gas. So what I recommend for everybody in that setting is take Musta. Musta is Cyperus rotundus. It's not going to keep you from having gas. It may decrease the amount that you have a little, but what it's going to do is make it easier to pass. So you're going to get less bloating, and it's also going to tend to be silent when you pass it, and it's going to tend to not smell at all. So that's Musta, Cyperus rotundus. This comes from ancient India, a system called Ayurveda. It works really well, and it's got a bunch of other benefits too. As always, I encourage you to put your comments in the comment section. I know this is an area that people are very passionate about. Thank you very much for watching this video. Be sure to subscribe and be sure to press the like button on this video too.